Hello there, everybody. Caught me at a good time. I'm about to go on vacation. Today, we'll be experiencing my favorite subgenre, adventure horror. Because in life, you never know where that road may take you.
Got it.
Why did you stop?
Sure. Why not?
Well, the first movie I would love to talk about is a movie called As Above, So Below. For me, it's kind of like the epitome of an adventure horror. And the reason why I say that is because it's extremely exciting. It takes us from point A to point B, a very messy point B, and of course the suspense and safety issues that come with it. And that really encompasses a lot of the adventure aspects, especially since they have some equipment, they are in underground caves. Now the film is very interesting. It's about a few young adults deciding that they really want to check out the catacombs in France. And what they do is basically hire a tour guide who sort of does illegal stuff by night, and they actually convince him to bring them down into the catacombs. So they go and meet him, they go inside, and of course, it's pretty creepy down there. It's full of bones and skulls, but it's also what they had expected originally. As the movie progresses and they get lost and can't find their way out, they end up going deeper and deeper. So it's pretty hard to put to words. I really think that you should watch it. It's got an incredible ending, really great cast, lots of practical effects, and of course it feels super claustrophobic because they're going through these catacombs and cave systems, and it just feels so authentic with the bones and the graffiti and the garbage and all that stuff. It's got a lot of interesting underlying themes of trauma, despair, guilt. It's really, really cool. It's definitely a super unique film. Blew me away when I first watched it. So I highly recommend you watch As Above, So Below.
Basically, as I believe the world to be, so it is.
All right, guys, so for this entry, it's actually the most modern one on our list, and it's called Escape Room. I think that many people have watched it, but it never really made it to any major streaming services, aside from, I think, getting put on Netflix for a few months or something like that. It was an official theater release, which really isn't that often for these types of horror movies. But what's really cool about this movie is it is a super original execution of a fantastic idea. Now, it's centered around the popularity of escape rooms that have kind of spawned all over North America in the past 10 years, and these people basically show up here to play that game for some prize money. Little do they know that each escape room is essentially inescapable, and what you pay for is your life as a price. Now, I don't want to give too much away because the really fun part about this adventure horror is seeing these people actually explore each room and in real time try to figure out how they get out of this situation. The creativity goes beyond the limits here, and all of the set design is really on point, not only just practically, but also physically and mechanically, and there's essentially no CGI in the film. It's all practical effects. There's a lot of really awesome environments. I don't know where they came up with this idea, but I'm so glad that these executives just threw money at the project and said, this sounds amazing, just make it look incredible. And that's exactly what they did. It's got a fantastic story. It's super exciting. You really feel like you're on the edge of your seat from start to finish. And it's like, man, I just want to tell you about the film, but I really can't. Go and watch it, please. And don't forget, it had a sequel almost right after the first one was made, and it is pretty much just as good as the first. So if you're going to watch the first, watch the second one, Escape Room. It's fantastic.
Are you okay?
Yeah, fine.
All right, guys, the next movie I want to really talk about is Wreck. originally a Spanish found footage film that even spawned 2 sequels and 1 remake. It's just an awesome film. Now, it's an unconventional adventure horror, and the reason why is because it takes place in a single apartment building. It's got about 4 or 5 floors, maybe 9 or 10 apartments in it. And in the story, what happens is someone in there becomes sick and infected. And shortly after that happens, it gets reported to something similar to the CDC, and they end up confining the building and quarantining it off so that no one can leave. This infection is not a normal one, and it breeds almost like a type of zombies crossed with rabies in humans. And it creates someone who's very, very aggressive in their apartment. Now, of course, it's unknown as to where the infection originally came from. We proceed to stay close with the characters as they're filmed in a found footage style in their time in the building, exploring and trying to find a way out or potentially just survive. Now, I can't give away too much, but it's got a fantastic ending, and I would highly recommend also watching the sequels and perhaps even watching the American remake. It was still great in its own regard. So if you haven't seen it and you love adventure horror or found footage films, I would definitely recommend watching Wreck. It's a really, really good one. Alright guys, the next film I really want to talk about is actually my introduction to adventure horror, and that would be The Descent. I mean, come on, guys. If you haven't seen this film, it's incredible across the spectrum. If you're a horror fan, if you're a suspense fan, if you love adventure films, this one literally ticks all the boxes. Now, I don't know if it's the actual spawning of this idea of having an adventure horror, but it feels like it was made early enough to kind of be the pinnacle or the origin of that subgenre. It essentially follows a few women that are leaving for the weekend, and they go to meet up with another friend who wants to show them this spot that she had just recently discovered. Now, all of them are spelunking, they're cave divers. So essentially what they want to do is go explore this new cave and put it on the map for themselves. Now, despite the risks that are involved, these are professionals. They've been doing this for a long time, and they decide that they're going to explore this new cave system in the middle of nowhere. Now, what's interesting about this movie is that there is a subplot going on that doesn't feel forced and gives a lot of substance to the movie itself. This way you don't just have a bunch of women going into a cave and putting themselves into danger. There's all this backstory that comes with it, which I find really envelops the story and makes it feel complete. Now, I can't give away too much, but what I can tell you is that they have a lot of terror ahead of them. Besides the simple dangers of exploring a cave, or you might be missing the equipment, or you might break your equipment, lose your equipment, or someone might fall or get hurt. It's like they experience a lot of the potential dangers that someone would have cave diving in the first place, and that's on top of the terror that comes later in the film. The writing is super interesting. The acting is fantastic. It had a pretty decent budget. It did fall under the radar when it came out, but a lot of horror buffs know this film for what it is. I've seen it a few times, saw it around the time that it came out, saw it a few years later, saw it years later after that, and I think I watched it recently and it was still as good as the day that I first saw it. It's one of those films that never feels tired, never feels repetitive. You always see little things, little nuances that are fantastic about the film. And from what I remember, there's an actual alternate ending to the film, which I definitely think you should check out when you do see the film. That being said, I really hope that you go on an adventure and watch The Descent. It's fantastic. All right, guys, next I want to talk about one of my favorite films, which I mentioned in episode 1, Silent Hill. Now, this one in and itself is pretty obvious on why it would be considered an adventure horror. For anyone who's played any of the Silent Hill games, you're constantly moving from point A to point B to point C and so on, making progress as you go along. Now, what makes Silent Hill, the movie, very unique when it comes to adventure horror is that the environment itself is essentially a giant abandoned town that is covered in smoke and soot. It's very foggy, it's very dreary, it's very mysterious. It's about a family, 2 parents and their young daughter, and she is starting to see visions of this place, talk about this place in her dreams, and they find her one night sleepwalking where she almost kills herself and mentions a place called Silent Hill. Against the father's wishes, the mother decides to do some research and go there. And as soon as she drives up the hill, you already know something's up. She gets into a minor accident, her daughter's gone. As she goes on to explore this small town to find her daughter, things just get crazier and crazier and crazier until the end. It goes without saying that all of the elements of horror that are transferred from the Silent Hill video game and pushed onto the screen for this film feel very real, with lots of practical effects, lots of playing of light, lots of playing of change of background, and just great cinematography in general. Even though it is perhaps an unconventional adventure horror, it's got all the elements of adventure, all the elements of horror, and I highly recommend you check that one out. All right, guys, so the next film I want to talk about is Cloverfield. Now, I know that there was a lot of mixed reviews on this film. A lot of people really weren't sure about it. They didn't think it was all that great, but it really is a cool found footage film. Besides it having an incredible marketing development before the film was even released, including fake websites, fake ads, and things of that nature, when it actually came out, it had so little known about it that people were actually blown away in the theater when they went to go see it. Now, the story follows a few friends at a party, and then this huge disaster happens, and he decides with some of his friends to go find his now ex-girlfriend. Now, what's very interesting about this adventure film is that it takes place in the city. So they explore streets, they explore buildings, they explore the sewers, all trying to survive in what they would deem a terrible time. Now, what's cool about this is you don't only have the creature feature aspect about this film, but you also have the natural destruction and decay of structures around them, which made for some really interesting, invigorating scenes that almost feel action-packed while somehow remaining that way during a found footage film. The story is very interesting. I think a lot of people didn't see it because they thought it might be stupid or cheesy or whatever the situation may be. But if you're looking to find some original adventure horror films, I promise Cloverfield knocks all of it out of the park. Definitely gonna enjoy that one. All right, everybody, the next film I want to talk about is The Ruins. A lot of people talked bad about this film. It got horrible reviews even after people were getting into it, but I do think that it deserves a chance on this list. Obviously, for the simple reason that it is an adventure horror, it makes it totally worth watching. But upon watching it again at a later date, I could see that there were really a lot of good qualities to this film. It had a decent budget, it had great practical effects, very good special effects, and the overall feel of it is very, very interesting. It's one of those things that really feels like despair, panic, isolation, all tied up into one spot. Now, most adventure horrors actually take place going kind of like from point A to point B, whereas this one, it's sort of like they arrive at this place and then they have to deal with the situation. So for that reason, it feels a little bit less of an adventure horror, but I'm sure if you've seen the film, you would understand why I would put it into the subgenre. And if you haven't seen this film, you'll understand once you see it. It has a lot of the adventure elements, including going somewhere you shouldn't go, accidents happening, and of course, the terror that ensues. One peculiar thing that I like about the movie is actually the execution of the idea. Now, I find that it happens sometimes that there are a lot of bad movies that have a really great idea, but fall so short from the execution that the idea itself almost seems like worthless. And for this, it wasn't the case. I feel like even though it did get bad reviews or it wasn't the best movie in the world, it was a fantastic use of execution with a great idea. I could even go as far as to say that it's an idea that could give you inspiration to write your own story about something along the same lines, or maybe something that's not so similar, but similar in some ways. All that to say that I'm very happy with the execution of that idea. So I would highly recommend checking out The Ruins. I promise it's really worth the watch.
Somebody help! Somebody help! Help me!
As for the next film, it's also an entry that I did mention previously in another video, which was about our twists, turns, and reveals, and that film is Triangle. The The film itself takes place mostly on the ocean and on a boat, but what really makes it feel like an adventure is that you have a group of friends that go out to take their sailboat out onto the water for the day, and they do actually get caught in a very serious storm. Once the boat is flipped over and they're out there waiting in the water hoping to get rescued, out of nowhere a huge cruise ship ends up finding its way towards them out in the middle of the ocean. They proceed to climb in, and although the ship is abandoned, it's very huge and requires quite a bit of exploration in order to figure out what's actually going on. So it encompasses many aspects of an adventure movie, and of course there's many horror elements that we get to see along the way, including a game of cat and mouse, strange things that are happening, a good amount of gore, and of course all the mystery anyone could ever ask for. It is a movie that did fall under the radar, but I do recommend that you check it out. For me, it's really one that will always stick with me. So if you get the chance, check out Triangle. Okay guys, so now I want to talk about Grave Encounters, a very interesting entry for this list. The film opens with a producer of a show called Grave Encounters during an interview. And what he says is, we have this team of people, they've got their own TV show. The first 5 episodes went amazing. They were exploring places that were apparently haunted. Everything went very well until we received the footage for episode 6. Now, when we start watching the film, we start to see it from the perspective of the crew who are filming this 6th episode. Now, what's really cool is you get a blend of found footage and this reality TV show blended together, almost like you're getting an uncut version of what the TV show would look like if they didn't cut any of the outtakes out. So you get footage of people setting up for a shot, you get footage of people talking about the show, what their personalities are really like when they're not playing on the show, which is really funny because it breaks the fourth wall, almost showing like, oh, these people are like real people, and we're seeing who they are when they're not being actors on this reality TV show. So for this episode, they're going to explore a super huge abandoned mental health facility, one that's been closed for many years. It's well known, it's got many buildings, many wings, and even has a tunnel system underground connecting all of these buildings and wings. So what happens is they start by going and exploring and actually interviewing a few people, either people that have previously explored the space, they talk to the concierge, they talk to anyone that might have been witness to any paranormal activity that may have happened on site. By the time they're done doing all that, to make the episode feel really real, they have the groundskeeper actually lock them inside of the mental health facility. So at this point, for real, they're actually going to spend time in this building. Now, of course, the team, they don't really believe in anything paranormal. They've never experienced anything of that nature. They honestly couldn't give a shit less. They're all a bunch of fucking losers and douchebags. You know what I mean? So they're in there. They don't assume anything's wrong. They're chilling. They're drinking. And then eventually one person goes on his own to get some B-roll of some of the places that might potentially be haunted. And then he experiences something very strange. Now, I don't want to spoil too much, but what's very interesting about this film is not only the fact that they're in somewhere what would be considered stereotypically a creepy place, like an old mental health facility that's abandoned, but this one actually feels like a very real execution of that idea, one that's been recycled many times. Now, adding the idea of a reality show behind the scenes and kind of fitting it all together almost as this found footage flick is really a treat. It's way more than just a popcorn flick. You're going to have a ton of fun watching this as a horror buff and as an adventure horror seeker. So I really need to sit here and recommend Grave Encounters.
What do you want? Are you in the room with us? Where are you?
What is that? Wait, what is that?
Holy shit! What the fuck was that?
Did you get that?
And finally, for our last entry, it's actually Cube 2. All right, I'm happy to say that this next entry is Canadian. And what's really interesting is this is one of the most unconventional adventure horrors that is probably on this list. Now, the reason why is because it doesn't involve any of the traditional adventure elements like the wilderness or equipment or something like caves or somewhere that you might feel trapped in a natural environment. This is very much feeling trapped in a man-made environment. It actually goes one step further, which I can't really reveal without revealing too much about the film. But what I can tell you is these people wake up trapped in a small room, and they essentially need to unlock a door so that they can go from room to room. Each room has its own serial number, and at some point in the movie, they decide to try and decipher these numbers to see if they can actually get out of the structure. Now, there are some twists and turns that are very, very interesting, and I think some people would actually think that the science fiction was taken too far for this one entry, but I beg to differ. This is a story about people trying to survive, to be smart, use their wits, and figure a way out of a very terrible situation as they move from point A to point B cubed.
Hello?
Well, thank you all again for joining us. We hope you had fun on this adventure. Now, if you really like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can catch us next week for a brand new episode on Sunday. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.